All right. Well, welcome everyone to Christ Central Stories, which is the podcast for Christ Central Church here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. My name's Joe Crummey, and I'm going to be helping to host today. And we are going to interview today Leo Berk. And part of the whole reason we do this is we just want to hear stories of how God has impacted and changed lives within our church family that we think are great for everyone to hear, but also to help bring some application to our everyday lives. And so I'm thrilled to have Leo here, and I first met Leo back in 1994, so a long time ago, and I know God's just done an incredible work in his life. So Leo, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here. I always watched Johnny Carson when I was a kid. It's kind of my first opportunity to take part in this. So.
Great, Leo. All right, well, I know a lot of your story, but probably a lot of people don't. So why don't you just start and just give us like some background. Where did you grow up? All those different things, Leo. Be great.
Yeah. Well, one thing that people may not realize is that my parents came from Holland. They moved from the Netherlands in 1955.
Okay.
Took a big boat to Pier 21 in Halifax, the famous Pier 21.
Yes.
My mother was pregnant with my oldest brother during the boat ride, which she never recommended to anybody else.
I would imagine not.
So my parents settled in Cape Breton Island.
Yes.
And they eventually, where I grew up was on the Buckwheat Road at the foot of Hunter's Mountain. You can kind of picture.
It's very picturesque, Leo.
Yes, wonderful. So we were where we grew up was 11 kilometers outside of the village, the village of Bedak. So a lot of woods, and we were a quarter mile from our nearest neighbors.
Wow. Yeah.
And 6 kids in 9 years. So I was the youngest. It was a good spot to be. But it was a small house, 4 bedrooms.
Wow.
My parents, of course, had 1 room. My sisters shared a room. There was two rooms upstairs. 2 of my brothers had those 2 rooms.
Yeah.
And I had it was an open space divided by a curtain, and I was right beside the stairwell. So if I rolled out of bed the wrong way, I could have gone for
so much for privacy.
Yeah, not a whole lot of privacy. So grew up listening to my older brothers playing rock and roll music on the other side of the curtain.
Yes.
So I didn't get as much sleep as I would have liked. Yeah.
Wow. So rural Cape Breton, growing up, sort of what was that like as far as like going through school and through your teenage years?
Right. Well, the school I went to up to grade 8 was Middle River Consolidated School, which they had basically 3 grades within a classroom, sometimes 4. So that was my introduction to school. Very small school. So Middle River, it took us about 45 minutes to get there by bus.
Yes.
Sometimes an hour. And so where I grew up was kind of we weren't really part of Middle River, but we went to school there. And then high school, I went to Bedak, high school there. But, we weren't really there either. We were kind of isolated to some degree.
Yeah.
So, it was an interesting upbringing. My father he would take apart buildings. He was a carpenter.
Okay. Yes.
He would take apart buildings, take all the wood home. In the summer, what we would do is take all the nails out of the wood, pile up the wood. He had plans of building things. He never did. So it's just piles of stuff around the house, and it would all eventually rot and rust. And so I never really got my father. And then I overheard him say one day he was talking on the phone, and he said, "I've got a junkyard in the backyard behind my house." And then it all kind of clicked for me. This is what he's doing. So that was the upbringing.
Yeah. Well, Leo, I know, and I just because I know some of your story, and I maybe jump ahead and maybe you can work backwards. But why don't you just share a little bit about your journey? Because I know as far as being introduced to Jesus and following Jesus, and that came probably more university years. But I know there were some difficult times in teenage and into university. Maybe just share briefly about that, and then, how did you encounter Jesus?
Right. So, my father had a drinking problem. So pretty much every day he would drink after work. So that made it a difficult home environment.
Yeah.
I saw a picture recently of my mother and father I must have been very young because they looked happy in the picture. Sadly, that wasn't my experience.
No.
You know, by the time
No.
I came around, their marriage was not particularly
Mhm.
happy, and so it was kind of dealing with that situation with the unpredictability
Yes.
of those circumstances. I was a very shy kid, very self-conscious. It was almost like two personalities because when I was home with my brothers and sisters
Mhm.
and my father wasn't there, I could be very energetic,
Yeah.
joking, happy. In situations that were more social situations, if my father was around, very, very quiet. And so kind of grew up, you know, dealing with social anxiety, just concerned what other people
Yes.
thought about me.
Yeah.
In the teen years, also kind of dealing with low mood, just kind of we were so isolated and just difficult circumstances.
A
So
lot of things working against you.
yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, there were days where the best part of the day was going to bed.
Yeah.
You know, it was just that kind of
Yep.
experience.
Yep.
So those were the challenges.
Yeah.
When I didn't really know what I wanted to do career wise, but I had a brother and sister that both went to Acadia University to study business, and I knew I wanted to go to university.
Yeah.
And so I just basically my plan was to do what they did
Yeah.
because I had no other real idea.
Understandable.
But the night I graduated from high school, I was talking to a young lady who had started journalism at Ryerson,
Mm-hmm.
and that sounded so interesting.
Yeah.
I changed my plans that night. I said, I'm just going to go to Acadia. I couldn't get out of Acadia. I said, I'm just going to go to Acadia for a year, study Bachelor of Arts courses for a year, try to get into this journalism program. And it turned out I went there and I enjoyed the psychology course so much that you know, that was the beginning of
started down that stream. Yes.
Started down that stream. But as far as the Christian development, our family attended a Catholic church when I was growing up.
Okay.
We went pretty regularly, really, but I can't say that it really had a whole lot of impact on me personally. My view, and I don't know where I got this idea, but basically I felt like, well, I was baptized as a child. As long as I don't kill anybody, I'm going to heaven.
Right.
It really doesn't matter what I do.
As long as I try to stay somewhat good.
Yeah. And I was doing pretty well with that. You know, I wasn't really tempted to kill anybody, so I thought I'm doing all right.
Yep.
But then I get to Acadia, and my first roommate, Colin, is a Christian, and you know, so he just kind of he was different from the other guys in the house that I lived in. You know, he was friendly to everybody. I was kind of thinking I didn't know what was up what was up with that, but he would do things like his lifestyle. Like what really stood out to me was guys would have parties on the weekend. There would be glass on the floor. The next day, he would be sweeping it up. I was thinking,
even though he didn't cause any of the problems.
He didn't do any of that. So anyway, so he just showed me by his example.
Wow. Yeah.
We had a few conversations about his faith, but you know, I wasn't super interested in it at that time.
Yeah.
But it certainly his actions spoke to me, and so so that was my first year. Then the summer after my first year, I go home and to Badak for the summer, and I meet a girl from South Africa. It just happened to be have relatives in Badak. She was there. I met her. I just you know, her just enthusiasm for life was you know, I
stood
enjoyed
out to you.
meeting with her, and so I invited her to go canoeing because I didn't have a car. It wasn't even my canoe. I had more of my brother's canoe. But if I wanted to get to know somebody, I would invite them to go canoeing. So
you got a captive audience.
Yeah. Well, it turned out I was the captive audience because no sooner do we get off the shore, but she starts talking about her Christian faith and just a real enthusiasm for her faith. I couldn't help but be drawn in and be intrigued by this because you know, she just made it sound so alive, and you know, it just kind of sparked a whole lot of questions for me. We spent a good bit of that summer just kind of her kind of explaining the faith, and and me asking a lot of questions and just kind of just intrigued by it. And then after the summer, went back to Acadia for a year or two. Colin was my roommate again, so I kind of got a bit involved in some of the intervarsity stuff, and started going to the church there, and just kind of was checking that out, and then went through a time where I kind of pulled away from it. But in that time of pulling away, I met Kim, and we were friends, and we were going through a difficult time with some friendships, and kind of pulled together. And as I get to know her, the more I got to know her, the more she shared her faith, and eventually we started going out. And I would her dad was a Baptist pastor, and a very, very good preacher.
Yeah.
And so all the questions that I had eventually over time were just kind of getting addressed by hearing his messages and being part of different groups. And it wasn't a quick kind of
you're on a journey, aren't you?
Yeah. But it was at my kitchen table in an apartment I had in Wolfville. In I think it was 1987. And I did. I said, okay. I'd read More Than a Carpenter.
Josh McDowell.
And really that kind of really the focus on Jesus. That he was alive. That people died because who followed him. That knew the truth.
A lot of evidence.
And so that just really spoke to me. And so I just asked for God's forgiveness. Asked Jesus to enter my heart. And no bells rang. I was waiting for something spectacular to happen. But the thing, what happened is that over the years, time, it just changed my view of so many things. Just one of the key things, just the value of life. I grew up with just the view that this world is overpopulated. If there's a disaster somewhere and people die, there's too many people anyway.
Right,
So, that was kind of the mindset.
Negative view.
It was not one that where life was valued. But that's one of the real key things that changes, just kind of seeing other people as God sees them as valuable, and so
that is a powerful change. And some people, it is a very powerful, momentous occasion, and for others, as you're saying, for many, it's like, I know, sort of the day and the time, but it was a gradual change. And so, just in case you're listening, Kim became Leo's future wife, and little did you know that your future father-in-law was having an impact on your
that's right,
on your life. All right, great, Leo. Well, thank you. Very interesting. So maybe fast forward. How did becoming a follower of Jesus, and then what did you do for your graduate work and leading into your vocation? Can you just share some of that story, and which leads up to what you've done up until present day?
Yeah, so like I said, I went to Acadia. Was just planning on being there for a year. I took a psychology course. The professor was, I have to choose my words wisely, but he was kind of a very odd individual. But even despite him being a very odd individual, I really enjoyed the course, and it was more. It helped me to understand myself. I wasn't I didn't kind of start into it with any kind of. I really want to, to help others. I studied psychology because it was kind of helping me to figure myself out. When you kind of grow up with that, that anxiety and dealing with the stuff that I had dealt with, it's just kind of, it was kind of therapeutic.
I gotta say, absolutely.
And also, I did. On a couple occasions met with a psychologist at the guidance counselor at the guidance center at the Acadia, and those were very positive experiences. And I started up a peer counseling group in my second year because I decided I'm just going to keep with the
You're just going to keep rolling with that,
I like it, so I'm just going to keep with that. And kind of figured at that point, journalism probably wasn't going to work for me anyway. So we did peer counseling group
Mhm.
where we just sit in an office, and usually it's sitting in an office all by yourself because nobody would come. But every once in a while, somebody would show up
Yeah.
and they'd start talking, and I kind of enjoyed that experience.
Yes. Good.
And the one thing about being introverted,
Mhm.
growing up an introvert, is that you become a good listener.
So putting all those years of practice into
There you
good
go.
use, Leo.
Yeah, absolutely. So you spend a lot of time observing people.
Yep.
So anyway, so it turned out to be positive. I thought I'll try to get into clinical psychology program
Yes.
for a master's degree.
Mhm.
Was fortunate enough to get into one at Queen's.
Yes.
Went for did complete my master's
Yeah.
degree there. And the program was set up that people were supposed to go on to do a PhD,
Mhm.
but I got married to Kim. So
Yes,
Kim and I
yep.
got married after I finished the master's degree, and I said I'm just going to go to. She was in London, studying
Yes.
in London.
Yeah.
I went to London, Ontario,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I went there and got some research jobs
Yes.
initially. They weren't great jobs, but it was kind of a start.
Mhm.
I did a really bad job. To be honest, I was doing a part of a pain study. And it was just awful, and I wasn't very good at it. But because I wasn't very good at it, eventually they said, "Why don't you start seeing some of our headache patients? Because we need somebody to do that." And you're not
Wow.
doing so great with the research stuff, so that was fine. And I was blown away that I was actually kind of presenting the program to them.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
as far as this is some things you can try with headaches.
Yes.
And they would come back and say, "Yeah, my headaches are bad." I was saying, "Oh, well, that's fantastic." Anyway, that led to doing that work led
Yeah.
to a job with a child and adolescent center.
Yes.
Where
Okay.
they wanted me to assess kids and
Mhm.
also be supervising other workers while doing my
Wow.
own case study. I felt totally I can't do this. So
Out of your depth.
I've been doing headache therapy.
Yes.
I can do that. But anyway, they with my graduate work,
Yeah.
they wanted me to do that. It turned out to be a great 4 years
Mhm.
in that job. And then Kim got after she finished her PhD. She got the position at St. Thomas University in
Here in
Fredericton,
Fredericton.
so we moved here, and within 6 months I got a job at the hospital,
Yes.
and so initially it was to assess adults who
Mhm.
had cognitive functioning, so if they were concerned they had Alzheimer's,
Yes, that's
or
right.
they had
Yep.
some kind of medical condition,
Yep.
basically they were having problems with memory, attention,
Mm-hmm.
I would assess them. Then I got into pretty quickly covering the child unit as well,
Mhm.
child floor and
Mhm.
outpatients, and also running groups for group therapy
Yes.
for adults. So
Yep.
it was another big stretch.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oof.
But Lord really blessed me
Yeah.
through all of that
Mhm.
process as far as being able to do those
Things.
things. Yeah.
Really important things.
Yeah.
No, that's great, Leo. Thank you for just sharing more of your story and how that all works out. And certainly, I mean, I think at any point, but certainly with COVID and in the culture that we live in, things like anxiety, all kinds of different things with our moods, right into the whole thing with suicide, and obviously from a church perspective and for us as pastors and everything, we're seeking to help and work together. And as we always say, we work together with psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors. We want that team approach. So, Leo, and part of what we're doing both here in church life and our podcast and that is trying to help again. We don't want that stigma of we just don't talk about some
Sure.
things. And even as Christians, we don't talk about them. We're trying to get over those hurdles and barriers to say, look, we can share our lives and we can be honest with one another. And so, on the whole, could you maybe help us out from just your perspective and what you're involved with? If I was to be thinking about suicide or something like that, what would you say to me, or what help would
Right.
you
Okay.
provide?
Sure.
If that's all right to ask.
Absolutely. I mean, this is I talk about suicide every day,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yes. Yeah.
When I'm at work, because I do cover there's a psychiatry unit
Mm-hmm.
on the pediatrics floor. I should probably, I know you know the difference
Yeah.
between a psychiatrist
Yes.
and a
Oh, you just that would be
psychologist,
helpful, Leo. Yeah, that's good. Mhm.
whenever I meet anybody, my first question is, do you know the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? Because most of
No,
us don't
it's
know the difference.
no, it's not
Some-
in our necessarily in
no,
our
some people know
vocabulary.
that one kind of prescribes medication,
Yeah.
but they don't know which one. They
Mhm.
don't know which
Yes.
one I am. So
Yeah.
a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who specializes in treating mental health issues, and they focus on the biochemistry of
Yeah.
the brain. And so they're looking at typically what kind of medication might help the biochemistry of the brain.
Yes.
So this person is feeling less anxious, less depressed, fewer mood swings, what have you.
Yeah.
Psychologists, we're not medical doctors. Our focus is on understanding how a person's thoughts impact their moods, their behaviors, how they're feeling physically, how certain events and circumstances impact the way we think about ourselves, about the future, about life.
Mhm.
Basically, we try to help people understand why they feel the way they feel, why they do what they do,
Yeah.
and trying to encourage people to take more positive ways of dealing with whatever challenges they're facing.
Yes.
We can easily fall into patterns of behavior that actually create more problems and more difficulties. So that's what psychology
Yes.
what we're generally
Yeah.
focused on. So like I said, probably the most important thing I do at the hospital is covering that psychiatry unit.
Yeah.
And so it's typically teenagers who, over 90% of the admissions there are teenagers who have had suicidal thoughts and or made an attempt
Yes.
in a pretty bad place.
Yes.
And now they're only there several days to a week
Mhm.
typically, so they're not there for a real long time. So my main emphasis is on just kind of targeting, talking about dealing with suicidal thoughts, because it is something that people do not talk about typically. They keep to themselves.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so my main point of emphasis is that most people, it's not uncommon to have suicidal thoughts. When people are going through difficult times, and it's not that they want to be dead. And I emphasize this with the teenagers that I meet with, because most of the ones that I meet with agree. No, I don't want to be dead. I just don't want to keep feeling the way I've been feeling. They've been struggling with really low mood or anxiety or a lot of stress, or sometimes it's after a breakup, maybe the first significant relationship they've had, or they're concerned about not getting into university. It could be a whole variety of things. And I really emphasize that with teenagers in particular, it's one of the most challenging times of life for most people, because there's so much transition taking place in that short period of time.
A lot of change in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're going from childhood, where their parents looked after all their needs, to adulthood, where they're kind of looking after everything.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, like I didn't, oftentimes they don't know what they're going to do.
No.
But it's all the puberty changes, their bodies changing, middle school hell, with with all the drama that takes place.
Exactly.
Emotions are being triggered by hormonal changes. Yeah. Everybody's bodies are changing. Everybody's paying
different
attention
times.
To that. Different times. This whole focus of I've got to look the right way. I don't want to get attention for the wrong reasons. Most of the people that we get there have some element of social anxiety, where it's not uncommon during those years, middle school years, early adult years, but it's pretty common for people that we see that are struggling with, just wanting to look the right way, sound the right way, just be accepted. There's a great fear of rejection. And I know that's not just teenagers, that's everybody, but that time of life, because they're going through so many transitions, you throw in the whole dating thing and the pressures they feel and what they see on TV, and it's just kind of
no wonder people get overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so it is people feeling overwhelmed, and that's just normal teenage years. You throw in maybe their parents are separated, maybe they've had
any other traumatic
of diabetes, maybe a learning disorder, something that makes school even more challenging. You throw in any extras, and it just kind of compounds the issues that people are feeling. And so it's again, one of the things I emphasize, I call it escape hatch thinking, where I'm under all this stress, just how do I get out of this? And so I say to them, it's not abnormal to have thoughts of ending your life. We don't want you to do it.
No, that's right.
It's a permanent solution to temporary problems. Your situations are going to change, but they're feeling hopeless.
Yes.
And that's one of the key components to struggling with suicidal thoughts. It's feeling like there's so many areas of life that are out of control, that are not the way I want them to be, and often with young people in particular, they don't have a whole lot of life experience as far as life has some highs and lows.
Exactly. You don't have to be able to hindsight and go, okay, no, I've been through some tough things, but I've made it through.
So they don't have that life experience. And so it's one of the things that really I'm trying to emphasize while I meet with them. Usually only about 2 or 3 hours of my time with each one of them is a sense of hope that things can be different. I can turn to my own life. I can say, from personal experience, your circumstances can change. I have a little graphic that I use to try to emphasize that. Yes, you're struggling right now, but circumstances are going to be different in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. So, and then we tried for some tried to do some education about depression, because when people are going through a difficult time, when they're struggling with sadness is a normal emotion. It's just things aren't the way I want them to be, so they feel sad. But if they then fall into withdrawing from other people, isolating themselves. If they become less physically active, they start dropping some of their activities.
There's a slide there, isn't there?
And they don't want to be depressed.
No.
They're kind of following the natural kind of tendencies that go along with feeling depressed, because depression is a joy sucker. It's an energy sucker. It's you just don't feel like doing things. And people generally aren't concentrating very well, so their grades are generally getting lower. And so it's kind of all things that they would have taken for granted: their physical health, their mental health, their relationships, just the course of their life, their schoolwork, what have you. It's like that with adults as well. It gets shaken in one of those areas, and then problems create more problems, more problems. And so when they're struggling with depression, which many of them are, it's educating them a little bit about some of those tendencies. A lot of teenagers struggling with mood issues are into self-harm.
They are.
My main emphasis with that is that's not a mentally healthy way to deal with your distress. It tends to feed depression. As does isolation, as does inactivity, as does just letting things slide. And it's a big battle.
Huge.
And emphasize it's not easy to turn things around. And when they leave the unit, typically they're going to be followed by somebody. They're going to see somebody. Have some ongoing counseling. But it's them trying to navigate through those waters. And with anxiety issues, which is also so prevalent.
It is.
Oftentimes one of the main tendencies is to avoid the situations that are triggering the anxiety, which means a lot of people are not attending school regularly, because that can be a major source of their anxiety. Avoidance feeds anxiety problems. When people have gone through difficult times and they are struggling with anxiety, the world starts shrinking, because they avoid this and then this and then this, and then it often is then associated with depression, because they're not enjoying life as much.
And so snowballs, doesn't it?
It is. It is like a snowball, and it's really trying to, as I say to them, when I first meet with people, it's trying to understand that snowball process. Let's stop the snowball.
Stop it. And
then start getting some momentum going in the other direction.
Well, very similar, Leo, because obviously in church life, we're coming at a lot of similar things with people, and same sort of things, just from a different perspective. Obviously we want people connected in church life, so they're not isolated, and just the Word of God, just renewing our mind, how the Holy Spirit can help us, how we can help each other, obviously, coming to Jesus and just experiencing His freedom and understanding Jesus, fully human, fully God, but
Right.
walked in our shoes and
Right.
all of those different things. And Leo, this has been really helpful. I know, unfortunately, we got to bring things to a close, but maybe the last thing, I know you mentioned it before, you kind of there were 3 things maybe you share with
Right.
people to help kind of stop that snowball and bring some safety and protection
Right. Yeah. Well,
around them.
a big piece of what I do is helping people with mood management,
Yes.
learning how to manage their moods. Because this is, whether we're talking about anxiety or sadness, depression, guilt,
Mhm.
whatever, anger has
Yep.
huge implications. So, I used to do a lot of work with young boys struggling with anger issues, and I would give them 3 rules. I'd
Yes.
say it's okay to be angry, because
Yeah.
you ask them, and they say, I'd say, do you think it's okay to be angry? And they'd say, oh no,
Yeah.
because they usually get in trouble.
Yes,
there.
that's right. Yeah.
But it is a normal emotion.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We feel frustrated.
Mhm.
We do feel anger.
Yeah.
And I would emphasize with them, there's 3 things you shouldn't do. You
Yes.
don't hurt yourself.
Yes.
Don't hurt anybody else, verbally or physically,
Yep.
and don't destroy property.
Yeah.
And I didn't create those. I
No,
got it from a
that's-
book.
Yeah, those are pretty good guidelines, though. Can you say them again?
Yeah, don't hurt yourself.
Self.
Don't hurt others. Don't destroy
Your
property.
property, yeah.
But hurting yourself isn't just physical
Mhm.
harm, self-harm.
Yes.
It's not engaging in activities that are going to create more problems
Yeah,
for you.
that's
So
good.
so
Mhm.
skipping school, for
Yes,
example,
yeah.
if you're feeling anxious about
Yeah.
it, that's not going to help you in any
Yeah.
way. Or some people, when they're distressed, they don't feel like they have much of an appetite, so they
Mhm.
don't eat enough.
Yeah.
Other people, consume food
Yeah,
to soothe
right.
themselves.
Mhm.
Both of those, are not helpful.
Yeah.
And so it's those kinds of it's a broad kind
Mhm.
of view of what does hurting yourself, what
Yes.
does hurting others,
Yeah.
those kinds of things
Yeah.
really mean. So typically when I'm meeting with people, I'll have a mood rating scale from 0
Okay.
to 100. Looks like a thermometer.
Mhm.
0 means I'm not experiencing that mood at all. 100 is
We're
yeah,
we're off the chart.
we're off the chart. And
Mhm.
so it's basically, the emphasis is on, we can handle the low moods,
Mhm.
the 10s to 30s, even
Yeah.
40 to 60, the moderately high moods,
Yeah.
we generally do pretty well with those. It's when the moods get in the high range, when we're
Mhm.
feeling really sad, really
Mhm.
anxious, really angry, they start managing us rather than us
Yes.
managing them.
Well said.
And so it's the people that manage moods the best have the most kind of strategies
Yeah.
at hand, things
Yeah.
that they can do.
Yeah.
If you only got one strategy, if you just play video games, you're not going to be great at managing moods.
Yes. Yeah.
Some people turn to alcohol to manage
Yeah.
their moods. It's finding ways that are not going to cause harm to you or
Yeah.
anyone
Those 3
else.
things.
Those 3
Yeah.
things.
That's
And
really
there's lots of
good.
things people can do.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing is, you can do lots of things that actually we enjoy doing.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but some of the key ones are just talking to other people.
Yeah.
Talking about the problems that you're
Yeah.
having, but also talking about other things. We can
Yes.
use distraction.
Yeah.
It's kind of, moods are like waves,
Mm-hmm.
and it's when the waves are high, there's no strategy that's going to take you from 70, 80,
Yeah.
90 on that scale to 0.
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't have
Yeah.
anything like that.
No. Yeah.
But if you can if you can do a few things, to
Incrementally.
get it down,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually it's going to come
Mhm.
down. We don't stay in those
Yeah,
places.
that's right.
And so, but again, it's trying to manage the moods without kind of breaking
Yeah.
those 3 rules.
No, that's really
And,
helpful, Leo. That's good.
as for Christians, I mean,
Mhm.
there's lots of, we can be listening to worship music.
Yes,
Again,
yeah.
we can be praying.
Yeah.
There's lots of
All those things
Christian-
can start to
Absolutely.
de-escalate us and get us
Absolutely.
channeled in a different
Absolutely.
direction.
So
Yeah.
there's again, there's lots of things that we can do
Mhm.
to manage moods. Unfortunately, it was never taught in school.
Yeah.
They
That's,
do a little bit more of it now,
Yeah.
for sure. But
Yeah.
for most people,
no, it's
it's
we have to
even
learn
talking,
these things.
Even
Yeah.
talking about emotions,
Yeah.
so it's people are especially guys,
Yeah.
not very comfortable
No.
with that.
no.
And so it's just kind of helping people to be comfortable understanding what emotions they're feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And learning
No.
how to deal with them.
That's really helpful, Leo. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Maybe we'll get you back another time to keep talking. But Leo, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your story, and kind of how Jesus getting hold of your life really did change the trajectory. And I just thank you, and I really feel obviously God's got you in a very important place to help others and to serve others. So I commend you for doing that, and thank you just for sharing and helping to educate and again talk about these things have been really helpful. So I just want to thank you, and again we just want to thank everyone who's been listening. And certainly if you want to follow up, you can contact our church here at Christ Central Church Fredericton, and we'd love to be able to talk more with you. So thanks for being part of things. Thanks again, Leo, for sharing with us, and we thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.